This is 9 News with Tracy Verl.
Good evening. Let's take you straight to an emergency news conference called in the last few minutes by Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews.
His household contacts have been isolated. The individual last worked at the Grand Hyatt on the 29th of January and he undertook a PCR test, so a nasal test, at the end of that shift, and he returned a negative test result at that time. Subsequently, he's developed symptoms, gone and got tested and has been tested positive. That result has come back today and we were notified of this late in the afternoon, in fact early into the evening. I'm joined by Minister Neville, Minister Foley, Jerome Weimer and also Professor Sutton to not only update the community and talk about some of the exposure sites where this person has spent some time, but also to appeal to every single Victorian, as we've done so many times and as has been central to our success as a state. If you have any symptoms whatsoever, the only thing for you to do first thing tomorrow morning is to go and get tested. This is one case. There's no need for people to panic. There's no need for people to be alarmed. We Victorians know what to do and we have proven as a state very successful at managing these sorts of outbreaks, these sorts of issues. Of course, we had a number of cases in and around the Black Rock area. A case in Vermont South. We were able to shut that chain of transmission down, so lock that down and shut down that outbreak very quickly. And Jerome in a moment will speak to testing sites and some of the other work that we have done. And so quick has been our response to this that it was appropriate, because we have things to update the Victorian community on. It was appropriate that we call this late night press conference in order to update you of that. The key point here is that there are a number of exposure sites, a number of places where this individual has been, and I want to take people through those. These, of course, will all be on our website, and we, of course, don't rule out adding to this. He's been very cooperative. There's been a number of interviews conducted. He's given us great levels of detail, and we're very grateful for that. At this stage, I can indicate that on Saturday the 30th of January, if you were at the Club Noble in Noble Park between 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, Aces Sporting Club, it's a golf driving range in Keysborough between 10 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. If on Sunday the 31st you were at North Point Cafe in Brighton between 8 in the morning and 9:30 in the morning, Kmart Keysborough between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m, Kmart Brandon Park between 4:30 and 5:10, Coles Springvale between 5 and 6 p.m. that same day, or on Monday 1st of February, if you're at Bunnings Springvale between 11:30 and 12:15 p.m, or if you were at the Melbourne Golf Academy, another golf driving range in Heatherton, between 5:19 p.m. and roughly 6:30. All of this will be on our website, but if any of those sites register for you as a place that you've been on the 30th, the 31st or the 1st of February, and particularly in those time periods, then we would ask you to go and get tested tomorrow morning, and we will provide you with advice. You should isolate until you get a test result. Again, this is one case. We are all well trained and well schooled in what to do as a state, but we've got to take this seriously, and through an abundance of caution I have a number of announcements to make in relation to restrictions and rules. Given that this may be that the mutant or that new strain, the UK strain, we haven't got genomic sequencing back yet. When we get that, we'll update you. We can't necessarily determine exactly how it is that the person has become infected, particularly given that they produce negative test results. All of that will become clearer with further examination of CCTV footage and genomic sequencing, further testing, all of that coronavirus detective work that's already well and truly underway. And we'll go throughout the evening. We'll have more to say about that tomorrow morning. But we have to assume that this person has in fact infected others. And it's through that abundance of caution that I'm announcing from 11:59 p.m. tonight, Cabinet has endorsed the advice of the Chief Health Officer to reinstate the Black Rock or New Year's Eve settings. So private gatherings 15 only, masks inside, across all inside. Whether it's a private or a public gathering, masks would be worn inside. And also, I want to give notice to those employers and employees that we are pausing the scheduled shift to 75% private sector on Monday and 75% public sector on Monday as well, That doesn't mean it won't happen sometime shortly after then, but at this stage we're pausing that. I can't be certain that we'll be able to take that step on Monday. So we will keep the current settings, which is public sector back to the office at 25% and private sector at 50%. As soon as we get advice that it's safe for us to take that step and go to the 75%, we will. But now's not the time to do that. Not until that detective work is a bit more advanced. We've got more test results. There's a whole lot of rapid testing been done tonight. We'll get those results in the morning. There's other testing that will be done throughout tomorrow, and we'll get those results and we'll update you accordingly. Again, I just want to finish on this issue before I make a further announcement. I just want to finish by making the point that we, all of us across this state, having been through everything we've been through, having been as a community so united and had that real sense of purpose to beat this thing, I'm confident that we all know what we have to do. I'm confident that we've got this in good time and we are working as hard as we possibly can, and people will be working, many hundreds of people will be working throughout the evening and for as long as it takes to track down every single close contact, to isolate them, to test them, to track and trace and to isolate and to essentially contain and smother this, just as we did at Black Rock around Christmas time, New Year's Eve, and indeed many other outbreaks throughout the course of 2020. But we thought it was appropriate, given that we do have information to update, it was appropriate to brief you tonight. We won't be able to answer all your questions because that's the nature of this. I think tomorrow morning we'll be out fairly early and we'll have more to say at that point. Just finally, before I ask Jerome to go to some of the nuts and bolts practical issues around testing sites and some of the other work that we're doing, because that is, again, the only thing that matters. The most important thing, if you've got symptoms or if you've been at one of these sites, you've got to go and get tested, and you can't wait till tomorrow afternoon. You've got to go first thing tomorrow morning. We're all counting on you to do that. All of us are counting on you to do that first thing tomorrow morning. However, tomorrow we were scheduled to receive the final report of the Royal Commission into Mental Health. That issue is such an important issue that I don't want for a moment any of us to be, to be occupied with other important matters. It is deserving of our absolute full attention, our undivided attention, and that's why it will not be tabled tomorrow. We will not make that available tomorrow. We will instead defer that, and when it's safe to do so, hopefully in just a few days' time, maybe next week, we will have that out to the public, and we'll be able to speak to our response to that. We'll be able to hear from the Royal Commissioners themselves. That is just far too important an issue to not have our complete and undivided attention. So that won't occur tomorrow, just for the purposes of clarity. That will not be being released tomorrow. It'll happen when it's safe to do so, and I would hope that that's in just a few days' time. So, having taken you through all that we know pretty much, I just now want to throw to the testing commander, Jerome, and he'll take us through the steps we've taken, the steps we've taken around pop-up test sites and some of the other work that we're doing, and then all of us are happy to take any and all questions you have.
That's where we'll leave Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews making an emergency news conference announcement there that there is one new case of COVID-19, a worker from a quarantine hotel for the Australian Open. We understand that he's a 26-year-old. There is a long list of exposure sites. They include the suburbs of Noble Park, Brighton and Springvale, but that long list will be on their website as well. They're urging everyone to get tested. Also, new restrictions, 15 maximum of people gathering inside, and also masks must be worn inside. Just repeating that announcement from the Victorian Premier there, a new case of COVID-19, a worker at one of the quarantine hotels for the Australian Open. All right, let's get to the rest of the day's news. Firefighters in WA are facing their toughest hours yet tonight, with the monster fire in the Perth Hills threatening 2 more suburbs. As we go to where an emergency warning remains in place for much of the city's northeast, the number of homes lost is now at 71, and with this devastation, authorities confirming tonight an appalling theft of 2 evacuated properties. Reporter Louise Rennie is at the fire control point for us tonight. Lou, what's proving to be the biggest challenge for crews tonight?
Well, Tracy, it's those strong southeasterly winds that are making this fire so difficult to control, with wind gusts of up to 70 kilometres an hour expected this evening. Firefighters are also up against some pretty tough terrain. There are lots of steep valleys in the area which are actually quite dangerous to navigate. Now, as you said, 71 homes have now been lost and 10,000 hectares of land burnt. The blaze is now closing in on the Shady Hills estate and East Bullsbrook. Residents there have been scrambling to evacuate as this monster fire charges towards their homes. So Tracy, a truly devastating day here in the hills, but a very long night ahead for the firefighters who've already been working so hard to contain this fire.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, Louise, thank you. In breaking NRL news tonight, the Dragons have pulled the pin on their controversial plan to recruit Israel Folau this season. Bill Hogan is outside St George League's club. Bill, it appears the club bowed to public pressure.
Well, this is certainly the outcome of people power, Tracy. The moment news broke of the Dragons' bid to bring Israel Folau back into the game, the backlash began. It sparked debate online and in the media over the merit of the star's return to the game, given his homophobic remarks that he made on social media, which ultimately ended his rugby career. Now, the decision to bring him back was meant to be reviewed by the Australian Rugby League Commission tomorrow night, but tonight, in an extraordinary general meeting with the club's powerhouses, they've decided to put the deal on ice. The Dragon released a statement earlier this evening acknowledging that negotiations were being made with Israel Folau, but those discussions have now ceased. Now, it's reported, or it's understood, that the Dragons were willing to offer Israel Folau a 2-year contract worth $1 million. But Tracy, this wasn't a decision based on money. This was a decision based on the reputation of the club. And tonight, the Dragons have decided that Israel Folau is not worth the fallout of the fans.
Bill Hogan, thank you. And new details are coming to light tonight on the hotel quarantine security guard whose infection sent Perth into lockdown. It's been revealed the man wasn't required to wear a mask on duty, a rule that has since changed. We're also learning case 903 didn't contract the virus while dropping off medication to a guest, as authorities told us yesterday. They're now working off the theory he either touched a contaminated surface or caught it through airflow in the hallway. We have developing news on the Tokyo Olympics, and tonight we've learned exactly what will be required of athletes from around the world in order for them to compete, and a vaccine won't be one of them. Organisers have unveiled their COVID playbook, a list of rules for all participants before, during and after the Games. Straight to Alice Monfries, who's across the details. Alice, so no vaccines, but plenty of testing.
Tracy, a lot of testing. All athletes will have to be tested before they leave their home country. They'll have to provide evidence of a negative result from that test when they arrive in Japan, where they will then be tested again on arrival, followed by a test every 4 days during competition. Now, they won't have to quarantine, but they will have to fill out what's been called an activity plan, which essentially will just be basically them detailing every move that they make during their first 14 days there in the country. They'll be temperature checked each time they enter a venue, and inside those venues there will be a ban on cheering. There will also be no chanting, no singing. Instead, athletes are being urged to support one another by clapping. The one question, Tracy, that is still being asked by everyone that we're yet to receive an answer to is whether or not fans will be able to attend the Games.
A big question indeed. All right, Alice, thank you. New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro could be making a move towards Canberra as a senator. He's one of 2 controversial coalition figures creating a distraction tonight for the Morrison government. Political reporter Jonathan Kersley reports.
Tracy, a run by John Barilaro for federal parliament would make it awkward for the Federal Nationals leader Michael McCormack, as the New South Wales Deputy Premier has been very vocal in his contempt for the Deputy Prime Minister, and a successful run would make them colleagues. It's understood pre-selection numbers are being crunched to see if Mr Barilaro will be endorsed as a National Party candidate. As one member of the Morrison government said to me today, imagine what this place will be like if John Barilaro is here. And from the Nationals to the Liberals, federal MP Craig Kelly has been hauled in by the Prime Minister and told to stop pushing views that are contrary to accepted medical advice, as his actions through his Facebook posts were negatively impacting the government's critically important vaccine strategy. The half-hour meeting came after this run-in with Labor's Tanya Plibersek, and the Prime Minister eventually responded in the Parliament.
You are the one spreading misinformation, right? You've got to listen to the professors, listen to our most senior immunologists. And
so your Prime Minister is wrong, is he?
No, Prime Minister is 100% right.
He agrees with you.
I'm saying you
Scott
are
Morrison,
wrong.
Scott Morrison agrees with you, does he, Craig?
Listen to, I'm not going to My Prime Minister will speak for himself.
The medical advice that guides my government's policy on the pandemic, Mr Speaker, is the best in the world.
And it's that advice that will be needed to drive the crucial vaccine rollout. Tracy.
Thanks, Jono. 3 people are in custody tonight accused of leading police on a pursuit through scrubland on the Gold